between 5th and Madison Avenue. Nutri-Pharma is unique and represents one of the most comprehensive and advanced nutritionally oriented compounding pharmacies in the United States. In Nutri-Pharma, you'll find one of the largest selections of vitamins, minerals, herbal extracts, homeopathic remedies, aromatherapy essences, Ayurvedic formulas, and hard-to-get specialty nutrient supplements. Nutri-Pharma's courteous and professionally trained staff is always ready to answer all your questions. Whether you need just basic nutrients or advanced formulas, Nutri-Pharma can fulfill all your needs. Visit Nutri-Pharma today and enjoy one-stop shopping for all your supplements. Or call Nutri-Pharma today at 212-983-8291.
Welcome back to Higher Insights. As you know, today we are talking about energetic healing with our guest, Diane Rose. Now, we were just talking about how long it takes for certain people to heal. Have you found cases that you cannot get rid of the blockage?
Oh, people that are totally resistant, they just do not want to get better. They'd rather stay in their disease because it gives them all the attention they want. And they'll fight you. You're not doing anything for me, this, that, and the other thing, which is totally inaccurate. You're bringing, excuse me for saying this, you bring the horse to water. Whether they want to drink it or not is up to them.
Cannot, yeah. Well, I have encountered it often, I wouldn't say often, but at times, that a person would be sabotaging themselves in every single way of healing. Then when you ask, why are you really doing everything wrong or sabotaging, they say, well, I don't know whether I can cope with being well. And I assume you encountered that also. It's the coping with being well, because all of a sudden they lost all the attention and everything else that they think made them separate from others.
The other aspect I find is that then people have to be accountable for what is going on. A lot of people do not want to be accountable. They'd rather blame everything in their external environment than themselves. It's all everything out there. It's not me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's another aspect.
It's always the blame game.
Yes.
That they can never admit that there is something wrong within them. It's always something
external,
something else.
In the external environment.
That's unfortunately actually why psychotherapy generally doesn't work, because it's generally either blaming or intellectualizing, but not going to the core of the problem,
or the issue,
which is really it's energetic and biochemical.
Yes. I find that when I'm with my clients, once you do reach that core with them, it's like monumental. It's like the doors have opened, the light shines on their face, and it's also, I'm sure you find this rewarding for me, that say, wow, this person's, they really get it, they really understand what's going on, and they share it with others, which is wonderful too.
Now, we were just talking about the meridians and the tsubos and so on, but let's look for a moment at the organs themselves. Now, in most of the cases that you see, could you say, can you find an organ that you would put number one that's always compromised?
I would go right into the kidneys, at least in my practice, and adrenals. People's adrenals are so run down. They're overworked, taxed emotionally, and exhausted. And one of the key emotions that I find is loneliness. People are so lonely, and they'll do anything not to feel that emotion.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the kidneys, because, of course, as you know, the kidneys are the organs of anxiety, fear, frustration, depression. And in this society, the majority of people are walking around with that. So it must be a constant and ongoing stress on the kidneys. And bringing them this forward. Because you cannot separate the physical from the emotional, as we said before.
Not at all.
So if something is going wrong with the kidneys, you will produce those emotions. If you have those emotions, something will go wrong with the kidneys.
The kidneys.
Right. And so the kidneys you find to be, and the adrenals, right?
I would say in my particular practice are the ones that are most, that I see, next, liver.
Yeah. I would have expected you to say that.
Anger, impatience, frustration is another big one. Why am I not losing weight? Why is this not happening? How come I'm not getting that job? And the frustration. I can't get to and fro from one place to another. And again, they end up trying to mask it with other things instead of going to the core.
Now, again, when you are discovering this, do you find that in your first approach, the person that you are drawn to that organ, or how does it reveal itself to you?
If a person first walks in, I get the empathic. I first feel the emotions that are associated with the organ. So if I'm going to feel the anger, it almost feels like a brick hitting me. It's so heavy, it's so hard, and non-porous. The kidneys, I feel the pain, the sadness, and I feel the fear coming up out of them. So I feel the emotion first, then I go into the organ. Then once I start working on the person, I actually do receive images of where the foundational piece is. That's when I communicate. It could be from mother, it could be from father, it could be from an instance or a situation that happened when they were 5 or 6 years old.
Or even when they were in the womb?
That's a lot that comes up. There was one woman who brought her son to me, and I said, look, you had some drugs given to you when this child was in vitro with you. And she concurred, yes. And I said, it had to have done with the adrenals. And she said, yes, because her son wasn't growing. And what ended up happening, I worked on him 2 times, I think, and he grew 2.5 inches in height, which is wonderful for the child. But, you know, that's another area. You can go right back to the in vitro and definitely see the imbalances. If the mother was going through problems at the time, if they were moving around a lot, if there's a death, all of these contribute to the birth or health, well-being of a child, and also the mother, who is the host.
Have you ever noticed a difference between the people that you see, somebody that had natural childbirth or natural conception, or those that are in vitro or artificial?
Almost definitely. You can definitely pick that up. It is definitely, unfortunately, all these fertility drugs are definitely wreaking havoc in the system. All through the reproductive system, all through the children. They're coming out with a lot of disabilities in the endocrine across the board in any area. I actually was working on a patient that had triplets, and her daughter is now 10 years old, and she had throat cancer, I believe. And there's an issue. Thyroid.
Thyroid. Well, thyroid often comes out because when these people cannot conceive, they still try to force it. They don't realize maybe there is another force that or another reason why they should not conceive at that particular time. But they force it. And generally, when you force anything in the universe,
there'll be repercussions.
I mean, what you want is not necessarily what you need. And that happens quite often in those type of cases. So they don't care less about anything else. And generally you are going to find some deficiency in what the product that comes out of that.
Yes.
And this reveals itself, of course, immediately when you see a person like this.
It will reveal itself not only in the mother, but then also in the child.
Right.
So there's a lot of deficiencies that are starting to go on. They don't have enough information about this to see long-term how this is taking effect on the children, the product, and also, of course, the mother.
Well, there has never been a study on that, what happens long-term with these children that are not totally naturally conceived.
Yes.
Right? Because even in the conception there is an energetic factor, and that it's not just tubes and things like that. So there is a lot there that I think is being missed. And then the repercussions come later in life, sometimes right away or sometimes much later. There are other factors also depending on also, let's say if a child is not brought up by the original mother, but just a stepmother or or they're adopted or something like that, again, do you see a difference in that too?
Most definitely. You can pick that up right away if there is a different mother. It's a totally different chemistry. It's a total different energy. And you can also see where, energetically, the frictions, the difference. You can feel in the child, where do I fit? Where do I belong? Abandonment issues that stem at a very low current that just amplify and amplify. And I also find, I'm not sure if you find this, that these children have eating disorders for some reason. And that's where it starts to stem from.
Because again, eating is that part
nourishment.
Where you have to maintain the body. And here, in the beginning, they already were forced to particular maintenance or were forced to be in existence and things like that, then the maintenance is going to have like a short circuit in it and not be totally correct.
Yes.
Now, in these type of cases, have you ever found a particular organ that is more prevalent in most of them? That's having problems? You mentioned, we mentioned before, we were talked about the kidneys and so on. But which of the organs do you find to stick out all of a sudden when you see this type of case?
I have to say the spleen and also the stomach are another area that I work heavily in. And again, that's digestion, digestion of emotion, digestion of thought. And it also has to do with the first line of defense against any pathogen. So these are other areas that show up.
Well, the spleen, I'm glad you mentioned the spleen because that's kind of the forgotten organ. And yet it's one of the most important organs in the body. The amount of things that the spleen does can fill pages. And the spleen also processes worries. So obviously, in all these cases, there is an underlying case of worry of, what next?
Yes.
And then, if this is going on for years and years and years, then the spleen will be way out there.
Yeah.
And the spleen is part of the endocrine system.
Yeah, and that's where I was just going to say to you, regardless, we're going to keep going back to that endocrine and also your immunity, your first line of defense against anything coming in, added with the worry.
And the spleen plays an extremely important role in the whole immune system.
Yes.
It's one of the most important roles in the immune. Without the spleen, basically, there is no immune system.
And don't you find that hard to believe that a doctor would remove the spleen?
Oh, they do it quite often. I mean, they the same with the gallbladder.
Yes.
These two organs are so removable, and yet it creates a tremendous amount of problems.
And imbalances. And with correct diet and correct energetic movement through the meridian lines, you would be able to repair them quite easily.
Yeah, but if they are not there, you just have to compensate.
Yes.
And that's right.
Yes.
Well, Diane, we're coming to the end of our program. I want to thank you very much for being with us again today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
I want to thank our viewers for being with us again today. See you next time.